Welcome to the Age of Fission radio show with your host, Lonnie Clark, where we constantly remind you that love is greater than fear and happiness is resistance. Well, thank you for joining me. This is Lonnie Clark with the Age of Fission radio show. And as the title suggests, this is my 7th reading of Dr. Helen Caldicott's book, The New Nuclear Danger, George W. Bush's Nuclear Industrial Complex, Military Industrial Complex. I beg you pardon, Dr. Caldicott. Let me read that again. Just one second. It's called The New Nuclear Danger, George W. Bush's Military Industrial Complex. This book was written quite a while ago, but boy, is it pertinent in today's world, 2002. And Dr. Caldicott has given me verbal permission to read this. And I have done this, for those of you who are just listening to me, on my channel, Nutzforart, Nutzforart on YouTube. If you look at my playlist, you'll see John Goffman's readings that I did. I read two of his books. I read Poison Power, and I have read, what's it called? It's kind of a funny title. I thought it was a joke when I first bought the book on Amazon. I bought it for $10, and it is called Population Control Through Nuclear Pollution. And he wrote that book as a warning. And that was written about 10 years before this book, right? So we've been after this for a long time. And there is a good reason why. And it is highly explained in this book, as you've been finding out. This is our 7th reading. And we still have quite a ways to go. If I were to give you, let's see. The book is going to be a total of 210 pages. Well, no, that's all the addition in the back. So what we're going to read through is 187 pages, and we're now on page 72. So I think I'll just get right to it. How about that idea? Let's see what this one sounds like. I like to play with these little buttons. Okay then, how about that idea? A little applauso for the doctor. Thank you, Dr. Caldicott. So the title of this subchapter, that we are on chapter 6, and the title of chapter 6 is Star Wars, the Story of National Missile Defense Systems. Lord, I have just been misspeaking. I hope that doesn't mean anything's going to happen tonight. If I mess up too badly, I'll just delete this podcast and do it again. But I think it's going to sound okay. That's how I go on my YouTube channel. I just sort of push through it. I thought I'd clear my throat for just a second. So, okay, from Centennial to National Missile Defense. Every military weapon ever built has instigated another weapon to counter it. Ever since scientists designed missiles capable of delivering nuclear weapons through space, the next imperative became an anti-missile system. To this end, in 1967, President Lyndon Johnson proposed a system called Sentinel, Sentinel, S-E-N-T-I-N-E-L. President Richard Nixon called this hypothetical version Safeguard, and Ronald Reagan's version became known as Star Wars. Eventually, all these plans were abandoned because none of them worked. Building thousands of hydrogen bombs proved far easier than building a system to foil them. Nevertheless, Reagan's charisma and power of persuasion swayed public opinion in favor of Star Wars, a shield to be constructed over the continental U.S. to protect against incoming Soviet ballistic missiles. His Star Wars speech in 1983 gave the imprimatur to a plan recognized by every reputable scientist to be unworkable. Reagan's speech also gave the whole concept of missile defense an Reagan's speech also gave the whole concept of missile defense an indelibly memorable name, and many people, including myself, now use the term Star Wars for the all-comprehensive missile defense plans, despite each successive administration's renaming efforts, aka Space Force, right? $70 billion later, after enormous amounts of work and research in many of the universities, colleges, and corporations around the nation, none of the evolving technologies has shown to be effective against incoming ballistic missiles. Following his election in 1992, Clinton directed his Defense Secretary Les Aspin to end the Star Wars program, or the Strategic Defense Initiative, SDI as it was then called. In May 1993, Aspin created an alternative to new organization called the Ballistic Missile Defense Organization, BMDO. Moving away from the concept of space-based weapons, the new plan was to acquire and develop ground-based systems designed to defend American forces overseas from battlefield missiles. 80% of the BMDO budget was appropriated to theater and short-range missile defense, 20% for research into national or long-range missile defense. But since the same technology is used to design both short and long-range systems, the Republican right was actually quite pleased with Aspin's plan, and Frank Gaffney, former assistant to Reagan Undersecretary of Defense, said that Aspin was really just rearranging the deck chairs. Yeah, I bet, rearranging the deck chairs. These people are rats, man, and murderers. Okay, back to the book. As early as 1991, I want to take off my glasses so I can put the book next to my face. I'll read better. As early as 1991, the Navy, Army, and Air Force had quietly begun to develop their own theater missile defenses. The Navy and Army worked on two similar systems: a lower-tier defense designed to intercept short-range missiles in the lower atmosphere, and an upper-tier defense designed to intercept missiles in the upper atmosphere. The Air Force, meanwhile, had developed several theater missile defense programs, TMDs, including a boost phase laser system intercept that would be deployed in a piloted plane. Aspin's BMDO specifically endorsed three of these systems: the Army's Patriot, which is PAC-3 lower tier system, the Navy's Aegis program, to be based aboard Aegis ships, which is AEGIS ships, and the Army's Theater High Altitude Defense, THAAD, THAAD, you guys have heard of that, right? Theater High Altitude Defense. It is a generally accepted notion that theater or short-range missile defense does not violate the Anti-Ballistic Missile Treaty, the ABM. However, THAAD operates at altitudes of 40 kilometers, almost outside the atmosphere, so in effect it does violate the ABM. But the shock of the political loss of the House and the Senate to the Republicans in 1994 had a dramatic effect upon Clinton's opposition to Star Wars. Among the dictates of Speaker Newt Gingrich's Contract with America was a provision calling for a highly effective defense of the continental United States at the earliest practical date. This makes me spit nails, guys, because this is exactly what these Republicans are imposing upon us right this second. They have not forgotten. These old coots, man. Lord. In order to placate the now powerful Republican Congress, Clinton specifically embraced the Star Wars issues, retitling it once again, this time to a seemingly more benign National Missile NMD. national missile defense. The American right remained adamantly wedded to the Star Wars idea, despite the fact that a 1995 U.S. intelligence estimate found that, quote, no country other than the major declared nuclear powers, no country other than the major declared nuclear powers will develop or otherwise acquire a ballistic missile in the next 15 years that could threaten the contiguous 48 states and Canada, unquote. Upset by this report, the Republican-controlled Congress appointed Don Rumsfeld Secretary of Defense in the Ford administration and now Secretary of Defense for George W. Bush to head an independent commission to counter the assertions. I bet he did. Quite independent of facts. How about that? My goodness. According to Bob Aldrich's background paper on the National Missile Defense titled Son of Star Wars, the commission was directed to consider the worst-case possibilities, but to exclude the most likely scenarios in its deliberations. They were told to assess real or potential threats from ballistic missiles carrying nuclear, biological, or chemical weapons, but were not to decide their probability or feasibility. Nor were they to consider that there could be other, easier ways to deliver these weapons. In other words, the commission was directed to find specific threats for congressional promotion of its NMD ambitions. General Harry Shelton, chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff, gave some perspective on the Rumsfeld report in a letter he wrote to Senator James Inhofe on August 24, 1998. The Rumsfeld Commission points out that through unconventional high-risk development programs and foreign assistance, terrorist nations could acquire the ICBM capability in a short time, and that the intelligence community may not detect it. We view this as an unlikely development, unquote. Oh my gosh. Treason is afoot, you guys. I mean, I think it's well past. Okay, back to your book, Dr. Caldicott. Unfortunately, Shelton's letter arrived just as North Korea launched a Taepodong missile containing a satellite over the Japanese mainland in August 1998, an event that gave new momentum to national missile defense. I bet it did, and that is exactly why it happened. This missile was based upon primitive scaled-up Scud missile technology, built by a country that has a gross domestic product smaller than Delaware's. The prestigious journal Jane's Defense Weekly said of the North Korean long-range missile site that it looks more like an abandoned oil derrick than the nerve center for annihilating the running dogs of capitalism. Well, that's quite of an insult, isn't it? Inherently capable of reaching the U.S. mainland, the primitive Korean medium-range missile crashed into the sea off the coast of Japan. Nevertheless, it provided the American right an enormous boost of moral ammunition. It also prompted Japan, which had previously been reluctant to become involved with the U.S. on plans for missile defense, to sign a cooperation agreement in August 1999 to develop a theater missile defense. The Rumsfeld report, now followed by another assessment from the National Intelligence Council, published on September 9, 1999. This new report warned that proliferation of medium-range ballistic missiles, driven primarily by missile sales from North Korea, presented an immediate, serious, and growing threat. This was not even an allegation that North Korea presented a threat, but that it was selling missile components to other countries that might be threats. Among other allegations, the report said that Iran, with the help of Russia, could test a missile before 2010 that could deliver a several hundred kiloton warhead against the U.S. and that over the next 15 years, the U.S. most likely will face ICBM threats from Russia, China, North Korea, probably from Iran, and possibly from Iraq. Wow. Fear-mongering. I know it's actually war profiteering, isn't it? It is war profiteering. They're not interested in peace. They're interested in war. Unbelievable. Back to the book, my dear. While these reports were designed to sound comprehensive and authoritative, in their zeal to justify multi-billion-dollar defense programs, they failed to acknowledge the fact that any country or person in the world could smuggle a nuclear, chemical, or biological weapon into the United States aboard a ship, in a suitcase, or a small private plane. A truck could be driven in from Mexico or Canada loaded with weapons. A cruise missile flying beneath radar, undetected by any NMD system, could also be used as a suitable delivery mechanism. Or, as we witnessed on September 11, 2001, American aircraft loaded with civilians and thousands of gallons of jet fuel could be used as ballistic missiles, the primary weapons. Simple, inexpensive box cutters. As the Mercury News argued on September 10, 1999, attack through these means was much more likely than attack through space. Well, if you believe the box cutter story, so be it, but I don't believe that at all. Back to the book. Joseph Cirincione, the director of the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, incisively stated that the new report reflects a lowering of previously established intelligence standards for judging threats. The report arbitrarily shifted the missile threat to incorporate all 50 states instead of 48 as allowed under the Anti-Ballistic Missile Treaty, which excluded Hawaii and Alaska. And it advanced at least 5 years the possible date of a rogue state long-range missile deployment. The report itself acknowledged that some analysts believe the prominence given to missile countries could develop gives more credence than is warranted to developments that may prove implausible. In other words, it's all bogus. The threat is bogus. Was then in 2002, is now. Oh, yeah. Except that, the closer they get. See, their plan kind of went wrong with the maniac in the White House, but we'll get back to her book. Meanwhile, in Washington, an independent review team headed by former Air Force Chief of Staff and retired four-star General Larry Welch and comprised of 12 experts on missile defense issued another report. This team was touted as the most experienced collection of civilian and retired military officers to have studied the anti-missile effort. They found that the missile defense program was plagued by inadequate testing, spare part shortages, and management lapses. The report criticized the government and contractor for exhibiting over-optimism about their ability to develop a reliable missile interceptor. It found failures based on poor design and fabrication, lax management, and lack of rigorous government oversight. The report said that the test schedules had been so compressed that the program was essentially a rush to failure. It was called a rush to failure, folks. Okay. The panel also pointed out that an actual kill vehicle had not been tested on an actual booster, as opposed to prototype warheads and surrogate boosters. And there was major concern that the kill vehicle would not be able to withstand the actual shock loads, because the actual booster is much faster and the loads are much more in an order of a magnitude greater than those of the surrogate booster now being used. The panel recommended that Clinton delay his decision to build the National Missile Defense. Clinton, however, was under impeachment proceedings in January 1999 and in an exceedingly vulnerable political position. By the end of the month, Defense Secretary William Cohen, acting for Clinton but also agreeing in principle himself, increased the missile defense budget by $6.6 billion. B with a B, billion. They increased the missile defense budget. Not the whole budget, just that one missile defense budget by $6.6 billion over 4 years, and announced a timetable that included a deployment decision before Clinton left office. While the Clinton administration had initially endorsed a modest missile defense system in response to the theoretically small ICBM attack from a rogue state, the defense budget increase announced by Cohen allowed the Star Wars lobby to get their proverbial foot in the door, and an animated debate of efficacy, technical validity, and viability of the proposed NMD ensued. As scientists from both sides of the fence attacked each other, 3 tests for missile defense failed. North and South Korea made peace overtures to each other, and the rationale for national missile defense disappeared. Clinton had originally enumerated 4 criteria for making the decision about deploying national missile defense: the threat, the cost, the technology, and overall American security. The threat was now gone. The cost was incomparable. The technology could not seem to work, and many felt that American security would be endangered rather than enhanced by deployment of NMD, a view confirmed by classified intelligence reports issued at the time on foreign responses to U.S. national missile defense deployment. The report warned that national missile defense would prompt China to expand its nuclear weapons arsenal tenfold and cause Russia to place multiple hydrogen bombs on missiles that currently carry only 1 bomb. The report also stated that if China were prompted to deploy 200 warheads by 2015, as noted, they currently only have 20 hydrogen bombs capable of hitting America. This would prompt India and Pakistan to respond to their own nuclear buildup. Oh, Lord. Yeah, this is also rational, isn't it? Let's just go crazy with war making and killing the planet things. How about that? Use the most deadly stuff on the planet. In response to the report, and with obvious relief, Clinton passed the Star Wars problem on to the next president, and thus avoided being labeled the president who destroyed the ABM treaty. Even as he failed definitively to decide the future of national missile defense, in typical Clinton fashion, he directed his Secretary of Defense to pursue a robust program of technological development. So unofficially, the program proceeded unabated. In contrast, George W. Bush now enthusiastically endorses a full-scale, no-holds-barred, multi-level national missile defense system. The Heritage Foundation has been busy setting the stage and leading the charge, including circulating the following petition during the presidential election year 2000, some months before Bush was declared president. This is what it says, quote, "Citizens petition to protect America now. Whereas China and Russia have threatened the U.S. with nuclear attack, and rogue nations such as Iraq, North Korea, and Iran have acquired or are acquiring missiles equipped with weapons of mass destruction, whereas the United States currently cannot stop even one missile after it is launched," and it doesn't say it is, it says it's launched, whereas the administration has declared that it must have the permission of the Russian government before deciding to deploy any missile defense for the United States, whereas the limited land-based, and that is actually not true, whereas the limited land-based missile defense system the administration says it may decide later this year to deploy will not be able to protect our families until 2005 at the earliest, whereas the United States Navy could be ordered to immediately begin the process of deploying a sea-based defense that would provide some missile protection several years before 2005. Whereas senior Pentagon officials have judged that a comprehensive missile defense with a combination of land, sea, air, and space-based components would offer the American people the most effective protection against a missile attack, and whereas the administration is currently engaged in treaty negotiations with Russia that would prohibit the United States from deploying sea, air, or space-based defenses, therefore I, fill in name, of fill in state, call upon my elected representatives and candidates for public office to pledge to my family and all of the families of the United States to support immediately beginning the process of deploying a sea-based missile defense as the first layer of protection for America's families, and further, to pledge to reject the notion that any other nation may exercise a veto of the U.S. military's ability to offer the American people the most effective protection available. Unquote. Oh, they're so good at writing stuff that makes you feel almost safe, aren't they, at that old Heritage Foundation? Jack Spencer and Michael Scardaville, Heritage Fellows, fashioned an op-ed piece for the Miami Herald on October 17, 2000, justifying such a commitment to national missile defense. They reminded readers that Iran tested a Shahab missile with an 800-mile range on September 21, 2000, and announced that Iran is, quote, dangerously close to developing nuclear weapons, unquote. Still dangerous, right? Oh, gosh. They also noted that on September 23rd, Syria acquired a new model of Scud missile for North Korea, allowing it to attack Israel from bases deep within its own territory, as if Israel would be attacked. For real? Wow. Libya, they said, began receiving North Korean Nodong missiles on September 24th, giving Libya the ability to attack Israel in southern Europe. They wrote that, I guess, Clinton took care of the Libya problem, right? They wrote that Pakistan and India were also planning new missile tests for intermediate-range ballistic missiles, and they ended by stressing that the threat to our troops and friends abroad is growing, that the U.S. needs an anti-ballistic missile system, and that reliance upon the ABM treaty is a folly. Wow. This is just pure genocide. This is outright greed and pure genocide for this to be going on. There is no reason to do this murder, death, kill. This just blows me away that these are real human beings. Let me get back to your book. We're not very far. We're only on page 79. Sorry, folks. I keep commenting. This just, I'm nonplussed by this. This is why I want to read this book. I want people to hear this. Back to the book. In response, Steve Lamontagne, a research analyst at the Council for a Livable World, wrote that the Spencer and Scardaville omitted the fact that the missile developments in Libya, Iran, and Syria occurred within a week of in response to Israel's successful test of its new Arrow 2 anti-tactical ballistic missile system, and that none of the above-mentioned missiles could reach the U.S. His article pointed out that if, as the Heritage Foundation claimed, anti-ballistic missile systems deter proliferation, why do Iran, Syria, and Libya seem unfazed and even provoked by Israel's missile defenses? And why is Russia determined to preserve its retaliatory strike capability against the possible U.S. defenses? The lessons from the Middle East and Russia is that the missile defenses encourage proliferation. Sorry, folks, I had to get a glass of water. Nonetheless, any ongoing debate about the need for or feasibility of national missile defense takes place even as corporations and the Pentagon quietly go about designing, contracting, and constructing most of the elements. There is no public discussion, no informed debate, or within or by the media. The American public is being asked to foot the multi-billion-dollar bill and take the catastrophic risks such as developments entail. I'm going to read that sentence again. There is no public discussion, no informed debate within or by the media, and the American public is being asked to foot the multi-billion-dollar bill and take the catastrophic risks such developments entail. That's exactly what's still happening. William Cohen, Clinton's Secretary of Defense, had enthusiastically endorsed national missile defense when he increased the missile defense budget in January 1999, referring to North Korea by saying, "We affirm that there is a threat and the threat is growing." Congress added to the pressure 2 months later by endorsing legislation introduced by Senator Thad Cochran. Thank God he's gone. Thad Cochran mandating national missile defense deployment as soon as it is technically possible and stating that it is the policy of the United States to deploy a national missile defense. Star Wars had been revived. On October 2nd, 2001, 21 days after September 11th, the Senate unanimously passed a massive $345 billion defense appropriation bill, which included George W. Bush's demand for flexibility on missile defense, which itself cost $8.3 billion. Wow. That is gigantic, you guys. Components of missile defense, new subtitle. The categorization of Star Wars or missile defense systems is complex and intertwined. The nomenclature is continually changing. During the 90s revival of Reagan's Star Wars concept, less belligerent terminology was devised to make the whole concept seem more acceptable. Missile defense was the chosen lexicon, and as previously noted, it had two components: Theater Missile Defense, TMD, and National Missile Defense, NMD. TMD was to be used to hit in mid-air, low-flying, short-range missiles, sometimes known as tactical missiles, like Scuds, which were used in Iraq in the Gulf confrontation. The flight time of these missiles is minutes only. NMD was conjured up to describe the interception of the intercontinental ballistic missiles, usually nuclear-armed. The flight time of sea-launched ballistic missiles, sometimes known as intermediate-range missiles, is 15 minutes. The flight time of land-based ballistic missiles, sometimes known as strategic missiles, is 30 minutes. Big difference. Star Wars and each of the options that have succeeded Star Wars and each of the options that have succeeded it encompass plans to protect against the whole spectrum of weapons, from the most primitive to the most dangerous and sophisticated. Individual politicians, lobbyists, and others endorse more or less extensive versions of missile defense, ostensibly related to the level of threat they perceive, but clearly very often driven more by mercenary factors. New subtitle, Limited Missile Defense. Some believe that America can only protect itself against rogue states or states of concern like North Korea, Iraq, Iran, Libya, etc. These countries possess conventional weapons, but none possess missiles capable of hitting the U.S., and none currently possess nuclear weapons. That's not so anymore. Since 2002, North Korea has it. Advocates of this approach favor anti-missiles missiles based on land, air, and sea. Anti-missile missiles. There's anti-missile missiles. That means it's a anti-missile missile. So it's actually a missile. Extensive missile defense. This is why people don't read these things. This gets all confusing. That's why I like to stop and make comments. Honestly, this is heavy stuff when we're thinking about what we have not been paying attention to. And actually, we can pay attention. October 3rd, I think it's October 6th through the 13th, is the international Space for Peace or No Space Force Week. It's No Space Force Week. And I'll be putting up some links on that. But we can make a difference. Extensive missile defense. New subtitle. Others argue that China must now be considered the new global threat, although it maintains only 20 primitive nuclear-armed ICBMs that are liquid-fueled and take days to prepare before they can be launched against the U.S. But the Pentagon is projecting that China will shortly be arming itself with ever more nuclear-armed ICBMs, and therefore argues that a more extensive missile defense than that currently planned for rogue states. Well, this is kind of a after the fact because they've gotten all this money. We're way beyond these arguments. Russia, on the other hand, retains a nuclear arsenal capable of destroying the U.S. and inducing a nuclear winter. It is obvious that no anti-missile system could ever protect the U.S. against some 5,000 Russian nuclear weapons descending on it from space. But the missile defense system makes sense in conjunction with the other components of the overall U.S. official policy to fight and win a nuclear war against Russia. That's insane. You cannot fight and win a nuclear war. Everyone loses. In a surprise attack, the U.S. will initiate a first strike, which means it will go first and win the nuclear war by taking out most of the Russian missiles before they are launched from their silos. These people are lunatics. Star Wars will then mop up the few missiles that have escaped destruction and will actually have been launched into space, so there will be no more Russian missiles to hit the U.S. This scenario will create a nuclear winter, of course. Space-based defense. New subtitle. An even more aggressive contingent within the U.S. establishment is pushing for a still more extensive space-based system, both to provide a greater degree of missile defense and to protect America's economic interest in space. Beyond protecting America's current borders from missile attack, this contingent plans to exploit natural resources by mining the moon, the asteroids, and planets for rare minerals. Naturally, if the U.S. invests billions of dollars in space research and development, it must be prepared to protect its investment. This logic led to the establishment of the new military entity, the U.S. Space Command, created by the Joint Chiefs of Staff in 1985 to help institutionalize the use of space in the U.S. deterrence. So, wait, ding, ding, ding. Let's get one of these sound things out here. What the heck? It was created in 1985. I thought they were just talking about it. What is this? Watch this. We're going to listen to these. Like what? Right. That's who they think we are. They think we are just completely dumb. What's this one do? There you go. That's the right sound. So it was created in 1985. I thought they were just talking about it. They talked about creating it, but it didn't. I thought that it was not like an actual thing. I think I'm stunned. I'm actually stunned. This has actually got me off topic here, and I'm going to have to talk to Dr. Caldicott. I'm going to talk to Carl Grossman, actually. In fact, I'm hoping that I can get an interview with Dr. Grossman pretty soon. Okay, let's get back to this, you guys, because this is something else. Okay, this logic led to the establishment of a new military entity. A new military entity, the U.S. Space Command, created by the U.S. Chief of Staff in 1985 to help institutionalize the use of space in U.S. deterrence. The U.S. Space Command explicitly states that the U.S. must dominate the space dimension of military operations to protect U.S. interests and investment. Domination that will be attained by the militarization of space with anti-satellite weapons, anti-ballistic missile weapons, laser beam weapons, nuclear missiles, nuclear reactors, and possibly orbiting nuclear weapons. So concerned is the rest of the world that on November 1, 1999, 138 nations voted at the United Nations for a resolution titled The Prevention of an Arms Race in Outer Space, which recognized the common interest of all mankind in the exploration and uses of outer space for peaceful purposes, and reaffirms the will of all states that the exploration and use of space shall be for peaceful purposes and shall be carried out for the benefit and the interest of all countries. Prevention of an arms race in outer space would avert a grave danger for international peace and security. Only the United States and Israel refused to support this resolution. Well, I'm going to stop there. We're on page 82. And there is something else I do want to talk to you about, so I'm going to stop. I'd like to keep my podcast at just about an hour, and I think we're 40 minutes into it. And let me make a notation on the book where I'm stopping. And today's date is the 23rd. Today is 9/23, Sunday. And I want to join you to follow us and help us. You can get these podcasts on YouTube, however you're listening to it. I am really grateful that you have perked your ears up and that you are listening to this, because it is up to us to create the information. The reason I stopped early is I want to talk to you about, I hope I can find the pages again, the global network. It's called Global Network Against Weapons and Nuclear Power in Space. And their website is www.space4peace, number 4, SPACE, number 4, PEACE.org. And they have their annual Keep Space for Peace Week. They're having this every year. They have a protest against weapons in space. And this is the International Week of Protest to Stop the Militarization of Space. October 6th through the 13th, 2018. And I'm reading right from their website. I will have the credits inside the information of this podcast. They actually are going to do an event, and I will read this to you. And there are tons of events around the country. And you can get a flyer and a handout that says "No Space Force, Keep Space for Peace." And it has some bullet points, local actions, listed information. Asheville, North Carolina, October 6th through the 13th. Ken Jones will make a poster image of Trump Vader with "No Space Force" message into a sandwich board and walk through downtown Asheville for an hour each day during the Keep Space for Peace Week. We'll pass out informational flyers and talk with whomever is moved to engage. That's a cool action, Ken Jones. Maybe I'll mimic that one. Because on this page they actually have this poster that you can print out, and they have flyers that it's already done. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Bath Iron Works in Maine, October 6th. Vigil across from Administration Building on Washington Street. Navy Aegis destroyers outfitted with missile defense systems built at BIW from 11:30 to 12:30. Disarmament Farm, 207-763-4062. Let me see how much time I have here. Well, I guess it doesn't matter because it's my own podcast. I can go as long as I want. That's the good thing. Okay. Blue Hill, Maine. We invite other groups to join us for our noon hour vigil on the bridge. Creech Air Force Base, Indian Springs, Nevada, September 30th through October 6th. 4th annual shutdown, Creech, Creech. Drone resistance mass mobilization. Special guests coming from Creech, Ray McGovern and Ann Wright. Contact Toby Blomé at, oh my gosh, I cannot read it, it's in red. So that's just the way it is. You'll have to go to Space for Peace on their actions page and scroll down. It lists all of these. USAF Croughton, England, November 6th. No Space Force March and Rally at main gate of U.S. Satellite Communications and Joint Intelligence Base. Space communications, drones, bomber, guidance, missile defense, and command and control functions. El Segundo, California. We will have a public screening of the Global Network online videos, Say No to Space Force, and 8 to 10 minutes each of Star Wars 1 and 2. Our main audience will be from Holy Faith Congregation and our Justice and Mercy Commission. We will be open to the public and particularly to the peace community. RAF Flying Dales, England, October 6th. Walk around the U.S. and NATO missile defense radar on North Yorkshire moors. And then again, they have the links, but tiny red colors that my eyes cannot read. King of Prussia. I could click on the links and get you there, but maybe that's what I should do. If I had more time, I would. And I am going to do another show dedicated to this before now and then, so... we're at 46 minutes into the hour, and I want to make sure I get through this because I am going to stop at an hour. Let's see. King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. Noon, outcry against Trump's Space Force and protests of militarization of space at Lockheed Martin, 230 Mall Boulevard, directly behind the King of Prussia Mall. Large banners and large posters of Trump Vader, the Earth flag, and ceremony of looking up with songs and readings. Lockheed Martin is the U.S. #1 space warfare contract and the world's largest war profiteer. Call 484-574-1148, and that is in Pennsylvania. Lockheed Martin, Sunnyvale, California. Stop the militarization of space. As the world's largest arms seller, Lockheed Martin profits from war-making, misery, death, and destruction. Vigil from noon to 1 p.m. at North Matilda Avenue and West Java Drive. Short talks by John LaForge at Nuke Watch and Marion Kupter, German anti-nuclear activists. Sponsored by the Pacific Life Community, local Catholic workers, Vets for Peace, and Code Pink. Call info at Susan at 650-649-8690. Menwith Hill, England, October 9. Weekly demonstration at the gates of the U.S. NSA NRO spy base near Harrogate in North Yorkshire. Theme on Keep Space for Peace and Saying No to Space, 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. All welcome. Milwaukee, Wisconsin, October 12th, 6:30, informational vigil to stop the militarization of space at the Mansford Olson Planetarium in UW Milwaukee, 1900 East Kenwood Boulevard, sponsored by Peace Action, Wisconsin. PamRichard35@gmail.com. Milwaukee, Wisconsin, October 13th. Noon to 1. Special stand for peace at the astronaut James Lovell Museum of Science, 815 North Lovell Street, corner of 7th and Wells. Sponsored by Peace Action Wisconsin. Same email address, PamRichard35@gmail. Mumbai, India, October 6th through 13th. Wow. Dr. Leo Ribello, World Peace Envoy and registered world citizen, has committed full campaign 6 through 13 October in Bombay schools, colleges, public meetings, press conferences, and social media discussion on no space force, no missile defense, close U.S. NATO bases worldwide. Stop drone surveillance and killing. End privatization of foreign and military policy. Convert the military-industrial complex. Amen to that. Deal with climate change and global poverty, leading to holistic healing and holistic development of humanity. And that is prof.leorebello@gmail.com. Let me check my timing going here. Good, 10 minutes. Naval Radio Transmission Facility, Nisemi, Sicily. The Mobile User Objective System is a U.S. naval computer and telecommunications system. A constellation of 5 satellites covers the whole world, whereas ground communication is made possible by 4 stations, one of which is located in Nesemi, Nescemi, Nesemi. Sicilians are worried about consequences of the installation on human health, the ecosystem, the quality of agricultural production, right to mobility, and to the development of territory, right to peace and security on our homeland and of its inhabitants. Protest event to be organized by MUOS. That is Mobile User Objective System, MUOS. No MUOS. Olympia, Washington, October 5th. Raging Grannies will perform for the Art Walk at the Rachel Corrie mural downtown and perform one song about peace and space along with songs about other issues. I will have my Star Wars weapon with me and will fire at will. Holly Gwynn Graham. Santa Rosa Junior College, California, October 10th. Public educational event on history, science, politics, and space by physics faculty Linda Williams entitled Space Force, A Force for Good or Evil, 5 p.m., room 1786, Shuha Building. And you can contact her at Linda, LYNDALOVON, @gmail.com. Vandenberg Air Force Base, October 3rd. Keep space for peace. Vigil at Space Warfare Base at the main gate from 3:45 to 4:45. For information, contact Dennis A. Pell, 805-343-6322. Space Week co-sponsor, Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, U.S. section. There are resources at the bottom of this page. Please contact these people to directly negotiate speaking dates, travel expenses, etc. during the week of local actions. They all have considerable expertise on space issues. So this is really awesome. Robert Anderson, from Political Science Professor, Central New Mexico Community College, Albuquerque, co-founder, Stop the War Machine. Frida Beringer, Armed Security Initiative, New Foundation, New York City. They give the phone numbers. Jackie Cabasso. You know what? Maybe I will give these phone numbers. Let's go back. Robert Anderson, co-founder, Stop the War Machine, 505-858-0882. Frida Berrigan, Arms and Security Initiative, 212-431-5808. Jackie Cabasso, Western States Legal Foundation, Oakland, California, 510-839-5877. Helen Caldicott, President, Nuclear Policy Research Institute, 202-822-9800. Frank Cordaro, Phil Berrigan Catholic Worker House, Des Moines, Iowa, 515-282-4781. Bruce Gagnon, Global Network, 207-443-9502. Joseph Gerson, Director of Programs of AFCSC, New England, author of Empire and the Bomb, How the U.S. Uses Nuclear Weapons to Dominate the World, 617-661-6130. Regina Hagen, no, she has an email address attached. Dominique Lalane, Also, email attached. Regina Hagen is in Germany from INESAP, INSAP. Dominique Lalaine is Abolition 2000, Paris, France. Andy Lichterman, Western States Legal Foundation, Oakland, California, 510-839-5877. My goodness, look at all these resources. Lots of names, folks. There's about 10 more names. And these are songwriters, singers and songwriters. Entertainers at the bottom of this. They have good music. These fine songwriters have space songs and other good political music. Ann Feeney with the link. Holly Gerwin-Graham, Olympia Washington with a link, speaks on all these issues as well. Joel Landy with a link. And Tom Nielsen with a link and phone numbers. I mean, frankly, they are basically begging you to do something and giving you everything that you need. They're giving you professional information that will give you some advice all across around the globe. They're giving you handouts, resources. They have links to handouts. They even have a resource that says space videos for sharing and availability, sample letter to the editor. This is just unbelievable. I am definitely going to do something here in Eugene, Oregon. And I don't know if I'll be doing it on KEPW or just my own show, Age of Fission, but I guarantee you I'm going to cook something up. I'm going to speak to Jana Thrift, the station manager. She also does Water is Life. Rick Gold, who is one of the co-founders of Eugene Peaceworks, he's a strong anti-nuke activist. I'm going to definitely put this out into the world because it's one more drop in the bucket. Not that they actually could care what us pipsqueaks do because they know they've poisoned us all. But you know what? I'm going to go down swinging. Like, poke them in the eye. I'm going to be out. I like that idea. Making like a board and just protesting like the clapboard, with the thing. I actually have something I could make that with. So that's an idea I like. Anyways, we are at 57 minutes, folks. I want to thank you for listening to this episode of the Age of Fission radio show. You're listening to Lonnie Clark, your host. I did an interview with Libby Halevi this week that will also post up, and I will tell you what, I felt a little embarrassed. I hadn't even started Libby's book, start to front, because I haven't had a lot of time to read because I've been working a lot. And I poked through her book and found some really valuable nuggets that I wanted to talk to her about. And then when we did the interview, she was such an intriguing human being. It made me get off the phone and start reading her book from the front, right? It is a hilarious, very interesting book. Great read. I cannot recommend it enough, to be honest. It's great. It's not a dry book. Excuse me, I had to sneeze. This Caldicott book leaves my mouth gaping and open, right? Libby Halevi's book has you kind of laughing and going, It sort of brings it home because her story could be any of us. And it's a very heartwarming story. So anyways, I wanted to thank Libby Halevi for that. And there are people that I am be lining up for interviews. Thank you for following this podcast. It matters. Please go out and create your no weapons in space thing. Please do go to spaceforpeace.org. That's what it's called. SPACEF, 4, the number 4, peace, PEACE, space, number 4 for peace.org. Because we definitely never need every single person to put your courage feet on, because it's up to you, it's up to me, it's up to us to make the venues to inform people and to stop. Just stop. That we're on the wrong road, and we have just got to stop and turn around. When you're on the wrong road, you can always turn back around. That's what I say. So put your courage feet on. I want to thank everybody for joining us. We'll talk to you guys next week. Take care. The Age of Fission radio show brings you book readings, pertinent articles, interviews with both activists and victims of nuclear and environmental contamination. We strive to deliver only the facts from reliable sources. We want to remind you that love, is greater than fear, and happiness is resistance. Our dedication to love and happiness paves the road for innovation and healing. As we face our harsh reality, let us hold each other up and rejoice in our humanity. If you want to comment, please send your thoughts to ageoffission@gmail.com. That's AGEOFFISSION @gmail.com. To your host, Lonnie Clark.